Alright folks, this is the introduction to my next project. It's going to be a TDI in the 81 Vanagon. So the TDI is a 2001 ALH electronic motor, and I'm going to swap it into this air-cooled Vanagon. Going to have to run, obviously the ducting for the water-cooled conversion, and then get the harness for the ALH motor swapped in. But I just picked this up the other day and it is really rust free compared to my 72. So I have a new diesel bell housing on the way, and then I'm going to swap that out and do a dual mass flywheel. So I'll have to do the input shaft. And luckily this is the earlier model. I think it's the DK motor, or a DK transmission. So it's got the 4.57 ring and pinion. I think I'm going to just mock it up in there and get it to run and drive, and then I'll drop the transmission and re-gear third and fourth. Fourth I can get down to 0.7. It's usually a 0.85 originally. So that'll let me cruise pretty good. With the 0.85, I'm not cruising very well. But here's the TDI motor. I bought it from a guy who blew up the transmission and was going to swap it for a manual. He bought all the stuff, tore it halfway apart, and gave up. It's got 200 and something thousand miles, a lot of miles, but he said it ran good, so I'm hoping it does. I mean, I tried to crank it over, but the starter's dead, and tried rebuilding a starter without buying too many parts, and that's dead. So I think I'm just going to start pulling it apart. Let me pop this open for you, show you around. So here's the interior of the Vanagon. It is pretty clean. I took a carpet cleaner to just about everything in here, and really made the smell go away. It was sitting for a while, a lot of sun damage on stuff, but I'm very happy. It's got the 4-speed. So first plan with the Vanagon: ordered a diesel bell housing for the original Vanagon 1.6. That has the same bolt pattern as the 1.9 ALH and AHU and 1Z. I think they all have the same bolt pattern. But I'm going to mount mine at 50 degrees. So that's a pretty common thing. It's how the Vanagons were factory. But the ALH does not fit the Vanagon 50 degree oil pan. So I'm going to have to custom build one of those. I think custom building it would be better in the van because it's going to be at 50 degrees and I'll know exactly how big I can make it and all that stuff. And I'm going to cut the original VW oil pan, like scalp it kinda, and then start building off of that. And the plan is I'm going to build 3 sides of the extension to the oil pan at 50 degrees, so back, bottom, and top, and leave the front open so I can get the oil pickup tube modified to pick up the oil properly. And once I get that done, I can finish welding the inside seams and then put that last piece on and weld that up, and then weld the inside seam. And then I'll know for sure, I'll be able to see for sure that the oil pickup is sitting, really close to the bottom, or however far it's supposed to be, like, I don't know, I think a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or something. And the step after that will be to build a cross member. So another problem with the ALH is the cross member does not fit the same as the AHU. You got to build a pretty custom cross member, but I'm a fabricator, I have a metalworking shop, so not too big of a deal. So after that, my motor is mounted, the oil pan is mounted, the oil pickup is good. I can start focusing on finishing up the build. Wiring harness does not seem very complicated. In this van, I have a Subaru. I just swapped, this is my second Subaru motor, second harness. right now it's just sitting in there for a mock-up, but it was running and driving fine, and then the transmission blew up. So this one is getting a transmission build, pulling it out, and then sending the tranny off. Next step would be the clutch. I'm going to do a dual mass flywheel. I think that a lot of people recommend that because it reduces wear and tear, it reduces vibration and noise. They do have an expiration date though. I hear they don't last that long, especially pushing 6,000 pounds down the road. So I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit and see how long it'll last me. I might be putting the Volkswagen heater core into my Vanagon and maybe seeing how that works, just because it's a free thing. I'm gonna run air conditioning. I'll probably put air conditioning underneath the front, there's the middle floor pan, behind or in front of the fuel tank. I'm also gonna put an oil cooler in. Probably gonna fit the oil cooler somewhere in the front of the transmission with a fan on it. A little overkill, but it never hurts to be cool. I found a mandrel bent stainless steel exhaust kit on eBay for 130 bucks. So I'll be able to, you know, get that pipe in there. I'll probably use the original cat out of the Volkswagen and then find an exhaust or something, or a muffler for my exhaust. I guess I'll give you a quick tour while we're in here. So I got the big bench, tank, storage and stuff, but sit 3 people across. I guess you can get a jump seat right there, but I don't really know how legs would work in that situation. And then you got the ice box. That's probably gonna get yanked out. And then you have the kitchenette, nice thing, with just a sink. I think it's an electronic sink, and no stove, which is all right. Probably won't do much cooking in here. And then the pop top, obviously. And I think that's about it. I mean, little baby storage cabinets and stuff. Tables. And another storage cabinet. Some vans came with AC up here. Mine did not. Just came with the extra storage, which is fine by me. And then a big cabinet there. All that plastic wrap is peeling pretty much everywhere on the bus. So that'll be coming off, and I can either, you know, paint it or replace it with some plywood. Not exactly sure what I'm gonna do. Need some upholstery work too, but you know, I ain't worried about it. And here we are again in the engine bay of the 72 bus. I had to take out the transmission for the 4th time because it won't shift. I'm gonna resurface the clutch plate, put a new clutch pad in there, and then I'm going to redo the clutch cable and the clutch pedal, make sure it's all actuating right. I'm just crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's because I don't want to have to pull this transmission out again. So me and Grayson are starting the motor pull today. So already been kind of taken down above the transmission, so I didn't do any of that. I did unhook all these, plug that off for the vent, but yeah, I started around noon, so I'm gonna try and keep track of how long the whole swap takes for like man hours. I don't really count the research because that's just, you know, my spare time when I'm sitting on the couch, but I will keep track of how long I'm actually turning wrenches and working on it. So it is 5 o'clock now. Took a lot of breaks today, so probably really only put in 3 hours of work. And the motor is now just hanging by the tractor bucket. I ended up unbolting the whole front end. I was thinking about taking the transmission or the engine out without the transmission, but I figured, you know, I got it at top dead center, but I heard that the harmonic balancer lining up top dead center is kind of iffy, so I figured just yank them both out. I didn't have to cut anything except for the short drive shaft because there's all the bolts are like seized in there. So the obvious plugs I just labeled, and I didn't label on the engine. So like this I think is the mass airflow, Yeah, mass airflow. There's labeled mass airflow. This was a big cluster on the front of the engine. There's like 3 big plugs all together, so I just labeled it engine front or front end. The ones that I don't really know what they are, I numbered, and then I numbered the corresponding plug on the motor. It's as easy as that. Motor and transmission are out. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes plugging up all the holes where here in Oklahoma we can have a bunch of mud daubers. Those are like wasps that build nests out of mud, and they'll go in all these holes and start building nests, so we don't want that. So my next step for the swap, now that the motor is out, is going to be pulling off the transmission, mounting this bell housing. This is the Vanagon diesel bell housing. You can tell by the center mounted starter. So I'll mount this in there and then get a top dead center mark transferred over to this bell housing. Just throw it in there for a mock-up and then get working on oil pan mods. I found, and once I get the oil pan pickup all squared away, I will move on to intercooling piping and then exhaust piping. All right, so right now I am test fitting the bell housing at 50 degrees. It does have some interference with the LUK dual mass flywheel. I knew that it was going to have a little interference problem. So I just put it on there real lightly, like hand tight, with 2 bolts. And I just spun the flywheel with the crankshaft. And then now I'm going to pull it off and see where it's touching and do a little bit of shaving. And then put it back on and see, and then just repeat the process until it fits with no interference. So here is the little nick. Just a tiny little thing, since it wasn't on there tight, right? Don't put it on and tighten it down, torque it down, because it's gonna crack some stuff. But it just rubbed a little bit on the flywheel teeth and didn't do any damage to the teeth. They're hardened. Aluminum is very, very soft. So it just had a little bit of aluminum shaving on the teeth. Gonna grind that down and try it again. All right, so that is my relief with 2 new scratches on it. I torqued down the flywheel this time to, and it just left those 2 small scratches. This is all I'm doing to test if it's hitting or not. I just spin it back and forth like a quarter turn. And then the way you can know if it's not hitting is you test it like that, and then you go and take off your bell housing. And when the bell housing's off, you test it again, quarter turn, and if it feels the same, then you're golden. If it doesn't, then keep grinding. And that's the final grind. It's not very much, maybe max a 1/4 inch. I took a little bit off right here because the flap wheel on my angle grinder hit. Might as well clearance it. But that is it. So now bell housing is ready to go on the Vanagon. I got a new input shaft seal installed, and I have my input shaft. This is a custom fit input shaft from some company I forgot the name of. I'll put a link in the description. It's like $170, $190 shipped or whatever. Really expensive, but it adapts the Vanagon transmission to the TDI motor. So it's a lot thicker, it's a lot stronger. Hopefully it'll work well for me. All right, dual mass flywheel and clutch is bolted in. Just wanted to show you this quick trick I saw online. I took the old belt, wrapped it around the flywheel, and held it with this big old wrench. You kind of get it tight, and then just cinch it down with the wrench. And I was able to torque all these bolts, you know, like going across and stuff. I started at 10 foot-pounds, then 25, and then 44. And then you torque 1/4 turn each bolt. And that's what they're calling out for the torque specs. So ramp up to 44 foot-pounds and then 1/4 turn. And this wrench and belt kept this tight enough for me to get it, you know, as tight as you want, really. And I didn't have any help, so I held it with my foot and torqued it down with my hands, and it worked great. So now I'm going to put the bell housing back on and line up top dead center from the front mark. I made sure to mark like where this was. It was the inside of the notch was lined up with the outside of the plastic notch. So I gotta turn it a little bit, and that'll be top dead center, and then I can mark it on my bell housing. All right, and that's my top dead center, and it lines up exactly where I had top dead center over there. I am currently underneath the Vanagon, and I'm working on getting the bell swapped out. Here's the original gas bell housing. I got the clutch throwout arm removed, and all the bolts done, all the bolts down here done. So now I just gotta pull it out and drain the fluid. This will pop right off with a starter. I don't know if I'm gonna use the starter or get the adapter for the Volkswagen manual starter to bolt right up. I'll probably get the adapter just for reliability and ease of getting replacement parts. And that is what a very stinky differential looks like. All right, got the input shaft out. This is your original input shaft. Mine is a little bit different than I was seeing. I don't know what this little gear is there. No idea what it does. I saw other transmissions without it, and mine has it, so no idea. But it also made it a little challenging because the shaft here, the slip yoke, was actually hitting on the differential. So you have to rotate the differential until you get that little slot, and it still rubs, but you're just able to slip it on there. So hopefully I'll be able to get the new one on, but I think it's gonna be rather tight. Shout out to It's a Steve Thing YouTube channel. He also has a TDI Swap Vanagon, and he posted a video on how to do this. So I'm pretty much just following what he did, and I mean, with this slight variance on this is an 091 transmission early model, so it's the air-cooled Vanagons, came with slightly different gearing, so I guess the gear for the input shaft is different than his. I'm assuming. Okay, and that is the input shaft installed. It wasn't too bad. It was kind of weird getting around the differential there, but once you got it started, it threaded around right pretty easy. So that's it. Now I just got to clean this up. I'm going to hit it with a stone, and then, you know, brake clean and WD-40 stone brake clean, and then put the gasket on with a little bit of silicone gasket maker, and then mount the new bell housing on. Okay, bell housing is installed. Looks pretty good. I ended up sandblasting it a little bit and painting it and cleaning it up just in general, and then got it installed, tightened it down lightly, and let the silicone kind of harden up, and then I torqued it down real good, so it's ready for the motor. Unfortunately, what I did not think ahead was I needed a throwout bearing. The original throwout bearing was okay, but one of the clips was broken, so I'm not going to use that again. And the throwout bearing that came with the dual mass flywheel was too small. The inner diameter was too small to go over the input shaft sleeve. So gotta wait. It's Labor Day weekend, so I can't, you know, go get a part from a store. Everybody's closed. Next week, though, I will be putting the motor in and working on the cross member. So kind of a bummer. I was hoping to get the motor installed for this video, but not gonna happen. Next video, I will have the motor installed and should be making the cross member intake and exhaust, and then I'm going to send out the computer for the harness and get that plumbed up. So hopefully next video I'll have it started, or at least almost ready to start.